Greetings and salutations. Call back in the chat if you can hear me. All right. Let's see who's here. Scrolling up. Svetlana and Diana Nicole. Hello, Christina. Sublime Gibson. Paul Carganilla with the Inquiry of Booze. Hello, Terry. Good to see you back and doing. I hope this means that you are much improved, Terry. I owe you a phone call. I need to just catch up and see how you fare. Meg Sampson. All right, Melissa Catano, bring in the vodka. Kathy B. I interpret this to mean that Kathy B has herself on the bar. Emily Thatcher. Hello. Oh, Diana Nicole. Well, I'm glad you're at least recovering somewhat. Good. Dariana. Hello, Miss Mills. My mom is here, logged in as Pearly Kitty. Yeah. Okay. Terry's gonna lie back and listen. Good. Fair. Take care of you. Whatever you gotta do to take care of you. That's good. Joanne King, hello. Roberta Acuna. Yeah, hello, Anna. Gianavola. Got it. I can say your last name more easily than I can say your daughter's last name. Hey, Deep Sky Dude. Good to see you back, man. All right, Will. Amanda Benjamin, that's a great show she just finished. For those of you tuning in, Amanda just did a Disney Villains Night, and I still have Poor Unfortunate Soul running through my head. That's from Little Mermaid, right? Is that Little Mermaid? Yeah, okay. Got that one right. Yeah, it's stuck on my head in an absolute loop. But, Will, good to see you, man. We got to catch up. Haven't talked to you for quite a while. And, hello, Miss Nicole Pierce. Lovely to see you. Yeah, so. Yes, from Little Mermaid. Okay, good. What did she call the fork? I've been... A dingle hopper. A dingle hop. Thank you, Wolfgang. Wait a second. Where is this coming from now? For a while, I was hearing his voice in my head just that clearly. I've tried to make that joke like a couple of times on the fly now, and I didn't know what to call it. I couldn't remember the punchline. Dingle hopper. It's like the dingle hoppers popping up in the chat now. Doogly hopper. I think David Benjamin is hitting the moonshine again. Dingle bopper. Okay. Single hopper. No, Diana Nicole, don't retract it. I'm digging the rhymes. Okay, so let's get started with some poetry. Shuffling this around a little bit. What's the Little Mermaid? Oh, Jesus. Yeah, right. Yeah, she's the dingle hopper queen, apparently. So tonight, I thought I'd open up with William Butler Yates. He was born in 1865, so whatever the the Civil War equivalent of baby boomers were. Um, yeah, 1865 to 1939. So yeah, he got to see the Roaring Twenties, but kicked off just after the Great Depression. In any case, Yates explained in a note. So you should know Arcadia is not just a town in Southern California. It's not just like a subdivision of Los Angeles. It's a mountainous, landlocked region of Greece. And nowadays, English speakers often use Arcadia to describe a place of rustic innocence, kind of like Walden, which I'm going to give you the last installment of also this evening. Arcadian can mean idyllically pastoral or idyllic. I'm going to get the stutters out now before the poetry starts. Idyllically innocent, simple, or untroubled. As Yates explained in a note included in the 1908 volume Collected Works in Verse and Prose of William Butler Yates, his exact quote was, "When I first wrote, I went here and there for my subjects as my reading led me, and preferred to all other countries Arcadia and the India of romance. But presently I convinced myself that I should never go for the scenery of a poem to any country but my own, and I think that I shall hold to that conviction to the end." So Yates moved from transcendentalism with a fascination with Irish mythology in his early years. He transitioned to poetry, which afforded more realistic and grounded expressions in the physical. His style is considered to be symbolist or symbolism. And here's a great quote. Yates said, "Education is not the filling of a pail, but rather the lighting of a fire." Damn, do I feel that way so concisely inside. The more I learn about a subject, the more passionate I become about that subject and the more I want to learn. Yes, David Benjamin, symbolist. I'm sure he had a great brass formula, as do the folks at Zildjian. Where's my tea? All right, so you may have heard this one, like axe throwing indeed. You may have heard this poem by William Butler Yeats. This opening poem is called "When You Are Old." When you are old and gray and full of sleep and nodding by the fire, take down this book and slowly read and dream of the soft look your eyes had once and of their shadows deep. How many loved your moments of glad grace and loved your beauty with love false or true, but one man loved the pilgrim soul in you and loved the sorrows of your changing face. And bending down beside the glowing bars, murmur a little sadly how love fled and paced upon the mountains overhead and hid his face amid a crowd of stars. Yeah. Yeah. and hid his face amid a crowd of stars. That's one I bet Will in particular. That's a tagline for Deep Sky Dude. Diana Nicole, yes, I did see that what you posted. Are you talking about the Yosemite axe throwing up in Mammoth? Because I did respond. I'm pretty sure that is the same company that opened up an axe throwing branch. I don't know what you call the indoor version of the. They opened one here in Big Bear. It's like right on Big Bear Boulevard. Your finger in my nose, bro. Yeah. We translate that to boop around here. One syllable. It's very easy. Man, I'm really curious to hear David Benjamin's favorite Yates poem. An Irish airman foresees his death. Ooh. Deep. Deep. Yeah. All right, here's another Yates. This is called A Drinking Song by William Butler Yates. Wine comes in at the mouth, and love comes in at the eye. That's all we shall know for truth before we grow old and die. I lift the glass to my mouth. I look at you, and I sigh. Oof. An axe-throwing branch is actually called Murder Club. Thank you, Paul Carcanella. That's great. Oh, I forgot to plug in my. How's the internet connectivity? Is everybody seeing everything okay? I just realized I didn't plug in my Ethernet, and I'm broadcasting on Wi-Fi. But is everybody seeing and hearing okay? The first rule about Murder Club, indeed, Christina. Yes, indeed. First rule about Murder Club is you don't talk about Murder Club. Before I go into to one more, okay, thank you, Emily. Internet is okay. Okay, good. The cables, never mind. Thank you. Stream is solid. Wonderful. David Benjamin. Oh, dude, that's funny. That's thank you. Thank you, Paul. Yeah. Good. Okay. So when you come to Hunter and the Dirty Jacks shows in the foreseeable future as things open up, when things open up, when things are rational again and live music is not a danger to people around us, you will see me wear a coat or three, not all at once. Some of them light up, some of them are covered with animal skins. Frankly, I've made a lot of coats, and I just love to perform in them. This song, wow, wrong show. This poem is called A Coat by William Butler Yates. I made my coat. Let's start this over. This poem is called A Coat by William Butler Yates. I made my song a coat covered with embroideries out of old mythologies from heel to throat. But the fools caught it, wore it in the world's eyes as though they had wrought it. Song, let them take it, for there is more enterprise in walking naked. Yeah. Yeah. Paul says, I considered joining a murder club, but the membership deposit was egregious. We're requesting him to sing Poor Unfortunate Souls. Okay, thank you. I couldn't possibly follow Amanda, who can actually do justice to that song. Oh, nice comparison by David Benjamin. I never really thought of it that way. Yates was concisely powerful, like Chopin. Huh. Good insight, David. Thank you. Wow. Okay. One more Yates here before we metaphorically turn the page. Thank you, Kathy B., who has seen some of my coats. This last one is called Brown Penny by William Butler Yates. I whispered, I am too young, and then I am old enough. Wherefore I threw a penny to find out if I might love. Go and love. Go and love, young man, if the lady be young and fair. Ah, penny, brown penny. Brown penny, I am looped in the loops of her hair. Love is the crooked thing. There is nobody wise enough to find out all that is in it. For he would be thinking of love till the stars had run away and the shadows eaten the moon. Ah, penny, brown penny, brown penny. One cannot begin it too soon. Yeah. My favorite, Diana says, my favorite has been Shiny from Moana for Paul. Oh, Moana is, okay, got it. This is actually a person I don't know for once. One of my, our favorite backup singer in Hunter and the Dirty Jacks, who toured with us for years. She's on, I think, literally all of our albums in some form or another. She just got a song on the soundtrack to Lucifer, which is on Netflix or Amazon Prime. I forgot which now. And so I won't be at all surprised when people start walking up and go, hey, you know Moana? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Svetlana is thinking of is thinking of the most recent of the mini coats. I've not yet seen the movie yet. The Disney movie Moana. I don't know. Is it good? I bet there are at least 25 people watching now that have seen it. Also, haven't seen Lucifer on Netflix. Okay. Heard good things about it though, and And yeah, Moana is just tickled pink that her song is what is her song is called "Girl on Fire," and yeah, there you go. Sounds like it's time to watch Moana. All right, so this is the last installment of what I have prepared from excerpts of Walden. Am I saying that right yet, Mom? Excerpts. Damn, I always add an extra consonant in there somewhere. It's not excerpt either. So this is the last bit, the last edit from Henry David Thoreau's Walden in a chapter called Where I Lived and What I Lived For. I love how this opens. For my part, I could easily do without the post office. I think that there are very few important communications made through it. To speak critically, I never received more than 1 or 2 letters in my life. I wrote this some years ago. I never received more than 1 or 2 letters in my life that were worth the postage. The penny post is commonly an institution through which you seriously offer a man that penny for his thoughts, which is so often safely offered in a jest, and I'm sure that I never read any memorable news in a newspaper. If we read of one man robbed or murdered or killed by accident, or one house burned, or one vessel wrecked, or one steamboat blown up, or one cow run over on the Western Railroad, or one mad dog killed, or one lot of grasshoppers in the winter, we never need read of another. One is enough. If you're acquainted with the principle, what do you care for a myriad instances and applications? To a philosopher, all news, as it is called, is gossip. And they who edit and read it are old women over their tea. Yet, not a few are greedy after this gossip. There was such a rush, as I hear, the other day at one of those offices to learn the foreign news by the last arrival, that several large squares of glass belonging to the establishment were broken by the pressure. News which I seriously think a ready wit might write a 12-month or 12 years beforehand with sufficient accuracy. As for Spain, for instance, if you know how to throw in Don Carlos and the Infanta and Don Pedro and Seville and Granada from time to time in the right proportions, they may have changed the names a little since I saw the papers and serve up a bullfight when other entertainments fail. It will be true to the letter and give us as good an idea of the exact state or ruin of things in Spain as the most succinct and lucid reports under this head in the newspapers. And as for England, almost the last significant scrap of news from that quarter was the Revolution of 1649, and if you have learned the history of her crops for an average year, you never need to attend that thing again unless your speculations are of a merely pecuniary character. If one may judge, who rarely looks into the newspapers, nothing new does ever happen in foreign parts. A French Revolution not accepted. I wonder what Thoreau would think of the news in 2020. I mean, it's just, yeah. And it's not that nothing happened in 2020, but I don't think he would have a much more favorable evaluation of current news. But coming back to what is relevant in today's news, Thoreau goes on. God, I can't believe how well he's got this next part pegged. Shams and delusions are esteemed for soundest truths, while reality is fabulous. Or as we would call it, fake news. If men would steadily observe realities only and not allow themselves to be deluded, life, to compare it with such things as we know, would be like a fairy tale and the Arabian Nights entertainments. If we respected only what is inevitable and has a right to be, music and poetry would resound along the streets. When we are unhurried and wise, we perceive that only great and worthy things have any permanent and absolute existence, that petty fears and petty pleasures are but the shadows of the reality. This is always exhilarating and sublime. By closing the eyes and slumbering and consenting to be deceived by shadows, men establish and confirm their daily life of routine and habit everywhere, which still is built on purely illusory foundations. Children who play life discern its true law and relations more clearly than men who fail to live it worthily, but who think that they are wiser by experience, that is, by failure. I have read in a Hindu book that, quote, there was a king's son who, being expelled in infancy from his native city, was brought up by a forester, and growing up to maturity in that state, imagined himself to belong to the barbarous race with which he lived. One of his father's ministers, having discovered him, revealed to him what he was, and the misconception of his character was removed, and he knew himself to be a prince. So soul, continues the Hindu philosopher, so soul, from the circumstances in which it is placed, mistakes its own character until the truth is revealed to it by some holy teacher, and then it knows itself to be Brahman. I perceive that we inhabitants of New England live this mean life that we do because our vision does not penetrate the surface of things. We think that that is which appears to be. If a man should walk through his town and see only the reality, where think you would the mill dam go to? If he should give us an account of the realities he beheld there, we should not recognize the place in his description. Look at a meeting house, or a courthouse, or a jail, or a shop, or a dwelling house, and say what that thing really is before a true gaze, and they would all go to pieces in your account of them. Men esteem truth remote, in the outskirts of the system, behind the farthest star, before Adam and after the last man. In eternity, there is indeed something true and sublime. But all these times and places and occasions are now and here. God himself culminates in the present moment and will never be more divine in the lapse of all the ages, and we are enabled to apprehend at all what is sublime and noble only by the perpetual instilling and drenching of the reality that surrounds us. The universe constantly and obediently answers to our conceptions, whether we travel fast or slow. The track is laid for us. Let us spend our lives in conceiving, then. The poet or the artist never yet had so fair and noble a design, but some of his posterity at least could accomplish it. This is a really good spot. Listen carefully. Let us spend one day as deliberately as nature, and not be thrown off the track by every nutshell and mosquito's wing that falls on the rails. Let us rise early and fast, or break fast gently and without perturbation. Let company come and let company go. Let the bells ring and the children cry, determined to make a day of it. Why should we knock under and go with the stream? Let us not be upset and overwhelmed in that terrible rapid and whirlpool called a dinner, situated in the meridian shallows. Whether this danger and you are safe, for the rest of the way is downhill. With unrelaxed nerves, with morning vigor, sail by it, looking another way, tied to the mast like Ulysses. If the engine whistles, let it whistle till it is hoarse for its pains. If the bell rings, why should we run? We will consider what kind of music they are like. Let us settle ourselves and work, and wedge our feet downward through the mud and slush of opinion and prejudice and tradition and delusion and appearance, that alluvion which covers the globe, through Paris and London, through New York and Boston and Concord, through church and state, though poetry and philosophy and religion, till we come to a hard bottom and rocks in place, which we can call reality, and say, this is, and no mistake. And then begin having a point of support below freshest and frost and fire, a place where you might find a wall or a state, or set a lamppost safely, or perhaps a gauge, not a nilometer, but a realometer, that future ages might know how deep a freshet of shams and appearances had gathered from time to time. If you stand right, fronting, and face to face to a fact, you will see the sun glimmer on both its surfaces, as if it were a scimitar, and feel its sweet edge dividing you through the heart and marrow, and so you will happily conclude your mortal career. Be it life or death, we crave only reality. If we are really dying, let us hear the rattle in our throats and feel cold in the extremities. If we are alive, let us go about our business. Time is but the stream I go a-fishing in. I drink at it, but while I drink, I see the sandy bottom and detect how shallow it is. Its thin current slides away, but eternity remains. I would drink deeper. Fish in the sky, whose bottom is pebbly with stars. I cannot count one. I have always been regretting that I was not as wise as the day I was born. The intellect is a cleaver. It discerns and rifts its way into the secret of things. I do not wish to be any more busy with my hands than is necessary. My head is hands and feet. I feel all my best faculties concentrated in it. My instinct tells me that my head is an organ for burrowing, as some creatures use their snout and forepaws, and with it, I would mine and burrow my way through these hills. I think that the richest vein is somewhere hereabouts. So, by the divining rod and thin rising vapors I judge, and here I will begin to mine. Yeah. And yeah, Christina, I would agree with you from what I understand of your internal experience of things. You do seem to live life quite deliberately. I admire that very much about you. And mom, yeah, the whole thing about rising early, I have mixed feelings on that. I don't know, because lately throughout the pandemic, when I do get up early, I'm more productive in the early morning. When I do stay up late, unless I'm editing a music video for YouTube, when I stay up late, I'm not all that terribly productive. By contrast, I wrote some of my best papers in college at 2, 3 in the morning. And then it's like, man, to hell with it. Sleep in. Get the damn thing done. Yes, and thank you for the reminder in the chat. Like, share, save to watch later. All these things help greatly and are appreciated immensely. So this brings us to tonight's short story. Oh, did I write Porthos in the middle of the night? Oh. Huh. Cool. Yeah, I guess so. Certainly didn't wake up early in the morning and write it. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think I did write Porthos late at night. That was a heavy song. Auto-corrected to the Cuban bakery. Oh, is that place Cuban? Huh. That's funny. I've had Porto's, the bakery, just when it's been like delivered on set or to music studios and stuff like that when I was working a job and the producers were, feeding the performers, that kind of thing. But because of Burning Man, I can never hear the name of that damn deli and not think of porta potties. I can't not think of the bathrooms at Burning Man that most of us just call the Portos. And so when somebody says, we're ordering takeout from Portos, what do you want? I just, something clean, please. Not the blue Kool-Aid. Yeah, Jesus. Yes, David and Amanda have my parents' same mix of circadian rhythms. It seems like my mom is obviously a late night person. She's watching in Midwest time, 2 hours after all the rest of us in California. And Dad doesn't even presume to watch these at night. He watches them the following morning, probably at sunrise. I'm not certain when Dad watches these exactly. Okay, so let's get to this short story for the evening. This is a God, I love O. Henry, and oh man, This guy, this guy was prolific. I'm not sure what year this story takes place in, but it is public domain. And let's just say this story takes place a long, long time ago, definitely before cell phones, probably before any form of telephones whatsoever. This story is called A Departmental Case by O. Henry. A Departmental Case by O. Henry. One sizzling August afternoon, the commissioner reclined in his office chair with his feet upon the long official table covered with green billiard cloth. The commissioner was smoking a cigar and dreamily regarding the quivering landscape framed by the window that looked upon the treeless Capitol grounds. Perhaps he was thinking of the rough and ready life he had led, of the old days of breathless adventure and movement, of the comrades who now trod other paths or had ceased to tread any, of the changes civilization and peace had brought, and maybe, complacently, of the snug and comfortable camp pitched for him under the dome of the capital of the state that had not forgotten his services. The business of the department was lax. Old Kaufman, the efficient and perpetual clerk, had requested an infrequent half-holiday, incited to the usual dispensation by the joy of having successfully twisted the tail of a Connecticut insurance company that was trying to do business contrary to the edicts of the great Lone Star State. So like Will, this takes place in Texas, y'all. The office was very still. A few subdued noises trickled in through the open door from the other departments. A dull tinkling crash from the treasurer's office adjoining as a clerk tossed a bag of silver to the floor of the vault. The vague, intermittent clatter of a dilatory typewriter. A dull tapping from the state geologist's quarters as if some woodpecker had flown in to bore for his prey in the cool of the massive building. And then a faint rustle and the light shuffling of the well-worn shoes along the hall. The sounds ceasing at the door toward which the commissioner's lethargic back was presented. Following this, the sound of a gentle voice speaking words unintelligible to the commissioner's somewhat dormant comprehension, but giving evidence of bewilderment and hesitation. The voice was feminine. The commissioner was of the kind of cavalier who made a low bow of greeting before the trail of a skirt without considering the quality of its cloth. That's great character development. He'll simply out of chivalry bow to any lady without first addressing how well her gown is made or what class she may belong to. He will simply bow to her upon her entry for no other reason than civility, because this is how you treat a lady. There stood in the door a faded woman, one of the numerous sisterhood of the unhappy. She was dressed all in black, poverty's perpetual mourning for lost joys. Her face had the contours of 20 and the lines of 40. She may have lived that intervening score of years in a 12-month. There was about her yet an aura of indignant, unappeased, protesting youth that shone faintly through the premature veil of unearned decline. "I beg your pardon, ma'am," said the commissioner, gaining his feet to the accompaniment of a great creaking and sliding of his chair. Are you the governor, sir? Asked the vision of melancholy. The commissioner hesitated at the end of his best bow. Well, no, ma'am, I'm not the governor. I have the honor to be the commissioner of insurance, statistics, and history. Is there anything, ma'am, I can do for you? Won't you have a chair, ma'am? The lady subsided into the chair, handed her, probably from purely physical reasons. She wielded a cheap fan, a last token of gentility not yet abandoned. Her clothing seemed to indicate a reduction almost to extreme poverty. She looked at the man who was not the governor and saw kindliness and simplicity and a rugged, unadorned courtliness emanating from a countenance tanned and toughened by 40 years of outdoor life. Also, she saw that his eyes were clear and strong and blue. Now, in bearing and dress, Luke Conrad Sandifer endeavored to do credit to the Department of Insurance, Statistics, and History. He had abandoned the careless dress of his country home. Now, his broad-brimmed black slouch hat and his long-tailed frock coat made him not the least imposing of the official family, even if his office was reckoned to stand at the tail of the list. You wanted to see the governor, ma'am? Asked the commissioner, with a deferential manner that he always used toward the fair sex. I hardly know, said the lady hesitatingly. I suppose so. And then, suddenly drawn by the sympathetic look of the other, she poured forth the story of her need. It was a story so common that the public has come to look at its monotony instead of at its pity. The old tale of an unhappy married life, made so by a brutal, conscienceless husband, a robber, a spendthrift, a moral coward, and a bully who failed to provide even the means of the barest existence. Don't step on the mixing board, buddy. Thank you. Yes, he... Pause. It was a story so common that the public has come to look at its monotony instead of at its pity. The old tale of an unhappy married life made so by a brutal, conscienceless husband, a robber, a spendthrift, a moral coward, and a bully who failed to provide even the means of the barest existence. Yes, he had come down in the scale so low as to strike her. It happened only the day before. There was the bruise on one temple. She had offended His Highness by asking for a little money to live on, and yet she must make a plea to her tyrant. He was drinking. He had rarely abused her thus when sober. I thought, mourned this pale sister of sorrow, that maybe the state might be willing to give me some relief. I've heard of such things being done for the families of old settlers. I've heard tell that the state used to give land to the men who fought for it against Mexico and settled up the country and helped drive out the Indians. My father did all of that, and he never received anything. He never would take it. I thought the governor would be the one to see, and that's why I came. If father was entitled to anything, they might let it come to me. It's possible, ma'am, said Standifer, that such might be the case, but most all the veterans and settlers got their land certificates issued and was located long ago. Still, we can look up that land in the land. We can look that up in the land office and be sure. Your father's name now was
Amos Colvin, sir.
Good Lord! Exclaimed Standiford, rising and unbuttoning his tight coat excitedly. Are you Amos Calvin's daughter? Why, ma'am, Amos Calvin and me were thicker than two horse thieves for more than 10 years. We fought enemies, drove cattle, and ranged side by side nearly all over Texas. I remember seeing you once before now. You were a kid, about 7, riding a little yellow pony up and down. Amos and me stopped at your home for a little grub when we were trailing that band of cattle thieves down through Carnison B. Great tarantulas, and you're Amos Calvin's little girl. Did you ever hear your father mention Luke Standifer? Just kind of casually, as if he'd met me once or twice. A little pale smile flitted across the lady's white face.
It seems to me, she said, that I don't remember hearing him talk about much else. Every day there was some story he had to tell about what he and you had done. Mighty near the last thing I heard him tell was about the time he was wounded and you crawled out to him through the grass with a canteen of water while they...
Why, yes. Oh, well, that wasn't anything, said Standifer, hemming loudly and buttoning his coat again briskly. And now, ma'am, who was the infernal skunk? I beg your pardon, ma'am. Who was the gentleman you married?
Benton Sharp.
The commissioner plumped down again into his chair with a groan.
Come on, bud. Here you go.
This gentle, sad little woman in the rusty black gown, the daughter of his oldest friend, the wife of Benton Sharp. Benton Sharp, one of the most noted bad men in that part of the state. A man who had been a cattle thief, an outlaw, a desperado, and was now a gambler, a swaggering bully who plied his trade in the larger frontier towns, relying upon his record and the quickness of his gunplay to maintain his supremacy. Seldom did anyone take the risk of going up against Benton Sharp. Even the law officers were content to let him make his own terms of peace. Sharp was a ready and an accurate shot, and as lucky as a brand new penny at coming clear from his scrapes. Standiford wondered how this pillaging eagle ever came to be mated with Amos Colvin's little dove, and expressed his wonder. Mrs. Sharp sighed.
You see, Mr. Standifer, we didn't know anything about him, and he can be very pleasant and kind when he wants to. We lived down in the little town of Goliad. Benson came riding down that way and stopped there a while. I reckon I was some better looking then than I am now. He was good to me for a whole year after we were married. He insured his life for me for $5,000, but for the last 6 months, he's done everything but kill me. I often wish he had done that too. He was out of money for a while and abused me shamefully for not having anything he could spend. Then Father died and left me the little home in Goliad. My husband made me sell that and turned me out into the world. I've barely been able to live, for I'm not strong enough to work. Lately, I heard he was making money in San Antonio, so I went there and found him and asked for a little help. This, touching the livid bruise on her temple, is what he gave me. So I came on to Austin to see the governor. I once heard Father say that there was some land or a pension coming to him from the state that he would never ask for.
Luke Standifer rose to his feet and pushed his chair back. He looked rather perplexedly around the big office with its handsome furniture. "It's a long trail to follow," he said slowly, "trying to get back dues from the government. There's red tape and lawyers and rulings and evidence and courts to keep you waiting, and I'm not certain," continued the commissioner with a profoundly meditative frown. "I'm not certain whether this department that I'm the boss of has any jurisdiction or not. It's only insurance statistics and history, ma'am, and it don't sound as if it would cover the case. But sometimes a saddle blanket can be made to stretch. You keep your seat, just for a few minutes, ma'am, till I step into the next room, and I'll see about it." The state treasurer was seated within his massive, complicated railings, reading a newspaper. Business for the day was about over. The clerks lolled at their desks, awaiting the closing hour. The commissioner of insurance statistics and history entered and leaned in at the window. The treasurer, a little brisk old man with snow-white mustache and beard, jumped up youthfully and came forward to greet Standifer. They were friends of old. "Uncle Frank," said the commissioner, using the familiar name by which the historic treasurer was addressed by every Texan, "how much money have you got on hand?" The treasurer named the sum of the last balance down to the odd cents, something more than $1 million. The commissioner whistled lowly, and his eyes grew hopefully bright. "You know, or else you've heard of Amos Colvin, Uncle Frank?" "Yeah, knew him well," said the treasurer promptly. "A good man, valuable citizen, one of the first settlers in the Southwest." "His daughter," said Standifer, "is sitting in my office. She's penniless. She's married to Benton Sharp, a coyote and a murderer. He's reduced her to wants and broken her heart. Her father helped build up this state, and it's the state's turn to help this child. A couple of $1,000s will buy back her home and let her live in peace. The state of Texas can't afford to refuse it. So give me the money, Uncle Frank, and I'll give it to her right away. We'll fix up the red tape business afterward." The treasurer looked a little bewildered. Why, Standifer," he said, "you know I can't pay a cent out of the treasury without a warrant from the comptroller. I can't disperse $1 without a voucher to show for it." The commissioner betrayed a slight impatience. "I'll give you a voucher," he declared. "What's this job they've given me for? Am I just a knot on a mesquite stump? Can't my office stand for it? Charge it up to the insurance and the other two sideshows. Don't statistics show that Amos Calvin came to this state when it was in need of civilizing? Don't they show that Amos Colvin's daughter is brought to ruin by a villain who's trying to pull down what you and I and old Texans shed our blood to build up? Don't history show that the Lone Star State never yet failed to grant relief to the suffering and oppressed children of the men who made her the grandest commonwealth in the Union? Well, if statistics and history don't bear out the claim of Amos Colvin's child, I'll ask the next legislature to abolish my office. Come now, Uncle Frank. Let her have the money.
I'll sign the papers officially, if you say so, and then if the governor or the comptroller or the janitor or anybody else makes a kick, by the Lord, I'll refer the matter to the people and see if they won't endorse the act. The treasurer looked sympathetic but shocked. The commissioner's voice had grown louder as he rounded off the sentences that, however praiseworthy they might be in sentiment, reflected somewhat upon a more or less important department of state. The clerks were beginning to listen.
"Now, Standifer," said the treasurer soothingly, "you know I'd like to help in this matter, but stop and think a moment, please. Every cent in the treasury is expended only by appropriation made by the legislature and drawn out by checks issued by the comptroller. I can't control the use of a cent of it. Neither can you. Your department isn't dispersive. It isn't even administrative. It's purely clerical. The only way for the lady to obtain relief is to petition the legislature and, to devil with the legislature," said Standifer, turning away. The treasurer called him back. "I'd be glad, Standifer, to contribute $100 personally toward the immediate expenses of Colvin's daughter." He reached for his pocketbook.
"Never mind, Uncle Frank," said the commissioner in a softer tone. "There's no need for that. She hasn't asked for anything of that sort yet. Besides, her case is in my hands. I see now what a little ragtag, bob-tailed, gotcha department I've been put in charge of. It seems to be about as important as an almanac or a hotel register. But while I'm running it, it won't turn away any daughters of Amos Colvin without stretching its jurisdiction to cover if possible. You want to keep your eye on the Department of Insurance, Statistics, and History." The commissioner returned to his office, looking thoughtful. He opened and closed an inkstand on his desk many times with extreme and undue attention.
"Why don't you get a divorce?"
he asked suddenly.
"I haven't the money to pay for it,"
answered the lady.
"Just at present," announced the commissioner in a formal tone, "the powers of my department appear to be considerably string-halted. Statistics seem to be overdrawn at the bank, and history isn't good for a square meal. But you've come to the right place, ma'am. The department will see you through. Where did you say your husband is, ma'am?"
"He was in San Antonio yesterday. He's living there now."
Suddenly, the commissioner abandoned his official air. He took the faded little woman's hands in his and spoke in the old voice he used on the trail and around campfires.
"Your name's Amanda, isn't it?"
"Yes, sir."
"I thought so. I heard your daddy say it often enough. Well, Amanda, here's your father's best friend, the head of a big office in the state government that's going to help you out of your troubles. And here's the old bushwhacker and cowpuncher that your father has helped out of scrapes time and time again wants to ask you a question. Amanda, have you got enough money to run you for the next 2, maybe 3 days?"
Miss Sharp's white face flushed the least bit.
Plenty, sir, for a few days."
"All right then, ma'am. Now, you go back where you are stopping here, and you come to the office again the day after tomorrow at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Very likely by that time, there will be something definite to report to you."
The commissioner hesitated and looked a trifle embarrassed.
You said your husband has insured his life for $5,000. Do you know whether the premiums have been kept paid upon it or not?
He paid for a whole year in advance about 5 months ago,
Said Mrs. Sharp.
I have the policy and receipts in my trunk.
Oh, that's all right then, said Standiford. It's best to look after things of that sort. Someday, they may come in handy. Mrs. Sharp departed, and soon afterward, Luke Standifer went down to the little hotel where he boarded and looked up the railroad timetable in the daily paper. Half an hour later, he removed his coat and vest and strapped a peculiarly constructed pistol holder across his shoulders, leaving the receptacle close under his left armpit. Into the holster, he shoved a short-barreled .44 caliber revolver. Putting on his clothes again, he strolled to the station and caught the 5:20 afternoon train for San Antonio. The San Antonio Express of the following morning contained this sensational piece of news. Benton Sharp meets his match. The most noted desperado in southwest Texas, shot to death in the Gold Front restaurant, prominent state official successfully defends himself against the noted bully, magnificent exhibition of quick gunplay. The article read in further detail. Last night, about 11 o'clock, Benton Sharp, with two other men, entered the Gold Front restaurant and seated themselves at a table. Sharp had been drinking and was loud and boisterous, as he always was when under the influence of liquor. 5 minutes after the party was seated, a tall, well-dressed, elderly gentleman entered the restaurant. Few present recognized the Honorable Luke Standifer, the recently appointed Commissioner of Insurance, Statistics, and History. Going over to the same side where Sharp was, Mr. Standiford prepared to take a seat in the next table. In hanging his hat upon one of the hooks upon the wall, he let it fall upon Sharp's head. Sharp turned, being in an especially ugly humor, and cursed the other roundly. Mr. Standiford apologized calmly for the accident, but Sharp continued his vituperations. Mr. Standifer was observed to draw near and speak a few sentences to the desperado in so low a tone that no one else caught the words. Sharp sprang up, wild with rage. In the meantime, Standifer had stepped some yards away and was standing quietly with his arms folded across the breast of his loosely hanging coat. With that impetuous and deadly rapidity that made Sharp so dreaded, he reached for the gun he always carried in his hip pocket, a movement that has preceded the death of at least a dozen men at his deadly hands. Quick as the motion was, the bystanders assert that it was met by the most beautiful exhibition of a lightning gun-pulling ever witnessed in the Southwest. As Sharp's pistol was being raised, and the act was really quicker than the eye could follow, a glittering .44 appeared as if by some conjuring trick in the right hand of Mr. Standifer, who, without a perceptible moment or movement of his arm, shot Benton Sharp through the heart. It seems that the new Commissioner of Insurance, Statistics, and History has been an old-time ranger for many years, which accounts for the happy knack he has of handling a .44. It is not believed that Mr. Standifer will be put to any inconvenience beyond a necessary formal hearing today, as all the witnesses who were present unite in declaring that the deed was done in self-defense. When Mrs. Sharp appeared at the office of the commissioner, according to the appointment, she had found that gentleman calmly eating a golden russet apple. He greeted her without embarrassment and without hesitation at the approaching subject that was the topic of the day. I had to do it, ma'am, he said simply. Or get it myself. Turning to the old clerk, Mr. Kaufman, please look up the records of the Security Life Insurance Company and see if they're all right.
No need to look,
Grunted Kaufman, who had everything in his head.
It's all okay. They pay all losses within 10 days.
Mrs. Sharp soon rose to depart. She had arranged to remain in town until the policy was paid. The commissioner did not detain her. She was a woman, and he did not know just what to say to her at present. Rest and time would bring her what she needed. But as she was leaving, Luke Standifer indulged himself in an official remark. The Department of Insurance, Statistics, and History, ma'am, has done the best it could with your case. 'Twas a hard case to cover, according to red tape. Statistics failed, and history misfired. But, if I may be permitted to say it, we came out particularly strong on insurance. Yeah. Oh, Henry. Oh, Henry, oh, Henry, oh, Henry. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes Fireside Tales with Wolfgang, number 35. Join us for the Silver Lovecast this coming Thursday at 6 o'clock. Lovecast number 60. Wow, that just sounds like a really big number. Yeah, join us for Lovecast 60 this this Thursday. And yeah, before then, I'll be in the chat tomorrow night for Dancing with Dari. If you haven't seen her Zumba show yet, it's a wonderful way to just get up and move for an hour. That's tomorrow night at 6:30 on the Vaudacity Network. And all right, I'm going to leave you all with the moment of Zen, being peaceful sleeping cat by the roaring fire, so that everyone can say goodnight to everyone else in the chat. And thank you for joining us. I love you all. I'll see you soon.